Allegations of illegal content circulating on social platforms raises urgent questions about moderations and accountability. For weeks, I hesitated. The decision to pursue this investigation was not taken lightly. The subject matter is deeply sensitive, legally complex, and emotionally taxing. It touches on one of the most serious crimes imaginable: the exploitation of children. Reporting on such material carries inherent risk, not only in terms of its legality, but also of the potential harm caused by exposure, even in the context of documenting evidence. But journalism, at its core, demands confrontations with uncomfortable truths. What began as a routine browsing of the social media platform X into something far more troubling, an experience that raises urgent questions about content moderation, platform responsibility, and the limits of digital freedom. A disturbing discovery. Like millions of users, I engage with X as a space of information, commentary, and connections. The platform markets itself as a bastion of free speech, freedom of expression, a digital town square where ideas, opinions, and content circulate with minimal. But beneath this idea lies a more complicated reality. During the course of ordinarily scrolling, I encounter links leading to explicit adult content. This in it's not unusual on many modern platforms where enforcement of adult material policies varies widely. However, what stood out was the algorithmic drift. The deeper one ventured, the more extreme and questionable the contents became. What began as an adult-orientated material appeared, in some instances, to cross into territorial that raises serious legal and ethical concerns. Let's be clear, any material involving minors in sexual content is illegal, exploitative, and there's no ambiguity here. The troubling aspect of this investigation is not merely the existence of such content on the internet. Law enforcement agencies around the world have long battled its proliferation, but the suggestion that that pathway to such material may exist within the role of algorithms, one of the central questions raised by this experience, is the role of recommendation systems. Modern platforms rely heavily on algorithms to curate content, often amplifying engagement by suggesting related material. Whilst this can enhance users' experience, it also creates the potential for unintended and dangerous outcomes. For example, if a user is exposed to increasingly extreme material through automated recommendations, experts in digital ethics have warned for years that algorithmic systems can inevitably create a rabbit hole whereby users are guided towards more sensational or provocative content. In the benign cases, this may mean political polarizations or misinformation. In the more serious case, it could mean exposure to material. This issue is not merely technical. Legal and ethical boundaries. The act of documenting such findings presents challenges. Journalists like myself must often collect evidence, to substantiate claims. However, when dealing with potentially illegal material, even the act of capturing or storing images can raise legal concerns. Laws vary by jurisdictions, but many countries maintain strict regulations regarding possession of illicit content, regardless of the intent. How can wrongdoing be exposed without crossing legal lines? In this case, any documentation was approached with extreme caution, with the intention of reporting to appropriate authorities. Dissemination. The priority remains the protection of victims and the pursuit of accountability. Platforms' responsibility. Social media companies operate on a global scale with billions of users and vast volumes of content uploaded every second. Moderation at this scale is undeniably complex. However, complexity does not absolve responsibility. Platforms typically enforce policies prohibiting illegal content, child exploitation. They invest in automated detections tools, human moderations teams, and partnership with organizations for online safety. Yet, enforcement gaps persist. Critics argue that companies often react than prevent. Harmful content is removed only after it's been reported or widely circulated. To Others point to inconsistencies in enforcement, where some accounts are swiftly banned while others remain active. Repeated violations. The question is merely not whether platforms have rules, it's whether those rules are effectively implemented. The human cost behind every instance of exploitation lies a victim. Discussions about policies, algorithms, and obscure this fundamental truth. The individuals depicted in such materials are not abstractions, they are real people, often subject and lasting harm. Advocacy groups emphasize that the circulation of illegal content perpetuates the harm, even years after the original abuse. Each instance of sharing or viewing contributes to an ongoing circle of exploitation. This is why swift detection and removal are critical. It is also why transparency matters. User platforms are addressing these issues. What safeguards are in place and how effective those measures truly are. Law enforcement and reporting authorities around the world specialized units exploitation. These teams rely on corporations from technology as well as reports from users and journalists. If suspicious or illegal content is encountered, the appropriate course of action is clear. Do not engage, do not share, and report it immediately through official channels. In many jurisdictions, dedicated reporting systems exist, allowing individuals to flag content anonymously. Platforms themselves also provide reporting tools, though their effectiveness varies. The challenge lies in coordination. When content crosses international boundaries, as it often does online. Jurisdiction issues can complicate investigation. This underscores cooperation and standardized protocols. A broader platform, a broader pattern, a broader pattern into research into online safety suggests that while major platforms actively combat illegal content, determined actors continuously seek ways to circumvent detections. They may use coded language, private groups, or external links to distribute material. This creates a cat and mouse dynamic where enforcement mechanisms must. However, the presence of pathways, however indirect, to such material on a widely used platform is deeply concerning. It suggests that existing safeguards may not be sufficient. The debate over free speech, one of the defining narratives around, is the emphasis on freedom of expression. But freedom of speech is not absolute. Every legal system imposes limits, particularly when speech intersects with harm, incitement to violence, harassment, and exploitation are what categories that fall outside protection and expression. Child exploitation is particularly unequivocally criminal. Framing the issue as one of free speech risks obscuring the distinction. The challenge is not balancing expression against censorship. It is enforcing clear legal boundaries while maintaining open discourse. Corporate accountability, calls for greater accountability, are growing louder. Regulators in multiple countries are considering stricter requirements for social media companies, including faster removal timelines, transparency, reporting, and financial penalties for non-compliance. Some proposals go further, suggesting executing in cases of systematic failure. Industry leaders, meanwhile, argue that overregulation creation and impose unrealistic burdens. They emphasize the change and the progress already made. The truth lying, what is clear is that public trust is at stake. The psychological impact exposure to disturbing content can have lasting effects victims, but also on those who encounter it unexpectedly. Content moderators, journalists experience trauma after viewing such material. This is often overlooked aspects of that issue. In recent years, there has been increased attention to the mental health of moderation teams, with some companies offering counseling and support services. However, the broader impacts remains difficult to quantify. For journalists, the boundary is significant. How to report responsibility without causing further harm. What comes next? This investigation is not an endpoint, it is a starting point. The findings will be shared with relevant authorities dedicated to combating online exploitation. The goal is not sensationalism, but accountability. Several key questions remain. How did this content or pathway to it appear within a mainstream platform? What safeguards failed and why? What steps will be reoccurrences. How can users be better protected? These are not questions for one. They reflect systematic, a call for vigilance. The internet has transformed communications, commerce, and culture. It has also created a new avenue for harm. Addressing these challenges requires a collective effort from technology companies, regulators, law enforcement, and users themselves. Awareness is the first step, but awareness must be followed by action, responsible in all commitment to protecting the most vulnerable. All right, my final thoughts. There is no easy way to report on a subject like this. It's uncomfortable, disturbing, and fraught with will be a disservice to victims, to readers, and to the principles of journalism. The responsibility now extends beyond this report. It lies with those who have the power to investigate, to regulate, and to enforce. It lies with platforms to uphold their own standards, and it lies with all of us to demand better. Because some lines are not meant to be blurred. They are meant to be clearly without compromise. Like, share, comment, subscribe to Wandering Star TV. And yeah, an intriguing has to get into. But if you are if you're representing X, if you're one of those regulators, please look into X, because I can post the links on this report. I can post the images that I found on X. I wasn't even looking. Why should I be looking? I'm not one of those people. But MILFs, a nice woman, and you scroll down and there's a kid. And you ask yourself, this is fucking Twitter. This is X, mainstream. And you got kids. I dare not even say what I saw. I dare not even say what I saw on these platforms. I'm sure most of you have probably seen it and they ignored it. I'm sure governments, big people have seen it because there's nothing they can do about it. Well, I'm going to call it out. Call it out. I can't live in a world where this is acceptable and it's normalized. I can't do it. I physically feel there's big people out there taking advantage. People like